The first time it happened, I thought it was a coincidence. One of those weird moments you laugh off and maybe mention in a conversation weeks later, like déjà vu or guessing a phone call before it rings. But it wasn't a coincidence, and it didn't stop. It started with a guy from work, Peter Hall. I didn't know him well. Just one of those quiet, polite types who floated along the edge of every meeting and never joined anyone for coffee breaks. He was new, hired 3 weeks ago, sat 2 cubicles over from me. I don't even remember his interview. We'd barely spoken before that Monday morning when I leaned over the divider and asked, "Hey, did you send that?" And he finished my sentence. "Report to legal?" "Yeah, just did." I blinked. "How'd you know I was going to ask that?" He smiled without looking up. "Just figured." Seemed harmless enough. But then it happened again and again. A day later, I went to ask him if he'd gotten a call from the vendor. He interrupted, eyes still on his screen. "They pushed delivery to Thursday." I paused, laughed awkwardly. "Okay. Are you a mind reader or something?" "No," he said calmly, as if it were nothing. "It's just easy with you." That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Over the next week, it got weirder. He'd answer my questions before I spoke them, sometimes when I was just thinking them. Once, I walked past his desk, holding my coffee, paused for a second because I forgot what I was doing. And he muttered, without turning around, "Conference rooms booked, try second floor." I hadn't said a word. I hadn't even turned his direction. I started avoiding him. But even from across the office, I'd feel his eyes on me. Not constant, just often enough that it itched. You know that feeling when someone's staring at the back of your neck? Like heat? Like gravity? That Thursday, we ended up leaving the building at the same time. The sky was already dark, and the wind had that sharp autumn bite. I kept a few paces ahead. But as I reached the parking lot, I heard him behind me say, clear as anything, "Your car won't start." I turned. "What?" He stopped on the curb, hands in his pockets, watching me. "You left your lights on." I fumbled for my keys, scoffed, and hit the unlock button. Nothing. No blink, no beep. I got in, turned the ignition. Nothing but a weak click. I stared at the wheel. My throat went dry. He walked up beside my window, smiled. "I can give you a jump," he said. "Or you can call someone. You'll choose the second." I didn't answer. I called roadside assistance and waited in silence while he stood 20 feet away, watching me from the shadows like it was a game. That was when I realized. It wasn't that he was guessing what I was going to say. He knew, word for word, and he wanted me to notice. And I started keeping a voice recorder on me. Just a cheap one from an old college project, something I could clip to my pocket. I had to prove it. To myself at first. That this wasn't just in my head. It only took 2 days. Friday morning, I hit record before stepping into the office. My palms were already sweating. I didn't even speak to Peter that day. Didn't look at him. But when I played the recording that night, right around the 4-hour mark, there it was. His voice, barely a whisper behind me. "You're going to drop your coffee at 3:14. It'll stain your shirt. You'll go home early. You'll lie to your boss and say it was food poisoning." I froze the playback. I had spilled my coffee. Exactly at 3:14, I checked the timestamp on my phone photo. I'd sent a selfie of the mess to my friend with a groan emoji. Same time, exact. And I had gone home early. And I had lied. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? What would I even say? I tried confronting him. Monday morning, I waited until lunch when most of the floor was empty. I walked straight up to his cubicle. He looked up like he'd been waiting. "You're going to ask me how I know," he said. I stopped cold. His expression was neutral, patient, like this was inevitable. "You think I'm following you," he continued, "that I've hacked something, your phone, your computer." I opened my mouth. He nodded. "But I haven't. And you know that already." My heart hammered. "What are you?" He stood up, slow and calm, and said the worst thing he possibly could have. "You'll stop sleeping after tonight." I didn't understand until I got home. My apartment was exactly as I left it. Door locked, curtains closed, lights off. Except on my kitchen table, neatly placed next to my mail pile, was a folded piece of lined notebook paper. It read, 3:41 a.m. You'll wake up to breathing. That night, I stared at the clock, exhausted, too afraid to sleep. My eyelids burned. My thoughts spiraled. 3:40. My room was dark, silent. 3:41. And then I heard it. Breathing, not mine. Deep, slow, right beside my ear. I leapt out of bed and flipped on the light. Nothing. No one. But the corner of my pillow was warm, and not from me. I didn't go back to sleep. I stopped going to work. I told HR I needed a leave of absence, citing health reasons. They didn't push. I think someone must have seen how pale I'd become, how I jumped every time someone said my name. Peter didn't call, didn't text. But I knew that didn't mean I was free of him. Because every day, without fail, something else would happen. A knock at the door with no one on the other side. A notification on my phone. "You're going to scream when you see it." A box on my doorstep containing a single sheet of paper that simply read, "Yes." No return address, no explanation, just yes. Yes, he knew. Yes, he'd been inside. Yes, I had screamed. The messages weren't always physical. They showed up in the oddest places. A comment on an old YouTube video I'd uploaded in college. "Don't bother deleting this. You'll check it again on Thursday night." I hadn't logged into that account in years. But I did check it on Thursday night, just to prove him wrong. I stared at the screen for 10 full minutes before I realized what I was doing. He was in my head. That Friday, I left town. Just packed a bag and drove west without a destination. I threw my phone out the window somewhere past Spokane and kept driving, motel to motel, town to town, never sleeping more than a few hours, trying not to speak to anyone, trying not to think, because somehow I felt like he was even in there now, one step ahead. And then, somewhere in Idaho, I found the house. It was a rundown ranch off a back road with a faded for sale sign hanging half off the gate. It looked like it had been forgotten by the world. I paid cash to a man who didn't ask questions and moved in the same day. No internet, no phone, no mailbox. I thought if I could just get quiet enough, if I could just stop interacting, maybe he'd lose his grip. And for a little while, it worked. I went 2 weeks without incident. I started writing again, longhand. I took walks through the woods behind the house. I even started to feel like maybe Peter had been a hallucination, a perfect storm of paranoia and insomnia. Then the mirror in the bathroom fogged up on its own. No one had taken a shower. I'd been in the kitchen. I stepped inside slowly, staring at the glass. And there, written in a fingertip smear, "You're going to write this down. You already are." I backed out of the room, shaking. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my chair with the lights on, staring at the wall, trying not to think, trying not to do anything that could be predicted. And that's when I saw it, on my notebook, the one I kept by my bedside, open to a blank page I hadn't touched. Except it wasn't blank anymore. My handwriting, a full paragraph. Something I hadn't written yet, but would. A recounting of the mirror fog, the words I would say, the fear I would describe. Even the last sentence was already written. And as you're reading this, you're realizing there is no end. And there wasn't. I moved again after that. I stopped writing, stopped going online. But it didn't matter. The things he says, I still hear them sometimes. Before I even think, before I even breathe. He's always one step ahead, always just waiting. So if you're hearing this now, if somehow you found this message, I need you to listen very carefully. Don't respond. Don't speak. Don't even think about what you're going to say next. Because he already knows. What time did you get in last night? That's the question my neighbor asked me the first time. Harmless enough, right? A casual chat between apartment dwellers, both of us standing outside our doors in the dim hallway light. Except for one thing, I hadn't gone out, not even to take out the trash. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I'd worked remotely the whole day, barely stood from my desk, microwave dinner, a glass of wine, Netflix. In bed by 11, the hum of my air conditioner lulling me into a decent sleep. And I definitely hadn't left the apartment after sundown. So when Mr. Langley, the older man from 4B, squinted at me the next morning with that question, I just blinked. "Excuse me?" I said. He smiled, the kind of polite smile people use to cover something else. Uncertainty, discomfort, maybe even suspicion. "Didn't mean to pry," he said. "Just saw your lights come on around midnight. Figured you'd just come back." "No," I said. "I was home all night." Langley nodded slowly, but his eyes didn't match the rhythm. He looked puzzled. Then he just shrugged and went back into his apartment. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. The next morning, same thing. "What time did you get in last night?" His voice held the same casual curiosity, the same too easy smile. This time, he added, "Heard footsteps. Thought you were maybe coming in late again." I lied. Said word, midnight, even though I hadn't gone out. Langley nodded again, muttering, "Figured." It kept happening. Every day for a week. Always the same question. Always the same quiet look that lingered just a little too long. By Saturday, I started doubting myself. Had I sleepwalked? Was I leaving the apartment at night and not realizing it? I bought a door sensor. One of those cheap little magnetic ones that sends a push notification to your phone when it opens or closes. I installed it on my front door and waited. That night, I didn't sleep much. Every sound in the building put my nerves on edge. But my phone stayed quiet. No door movement. Nothing. I was still when I finally drifted off at 4 a.m., phone clutched to my chest. And still, the next morning. "You were out late again," Langley said, tapping his temple with one crooked finger. "Some habits are hard to break, huh?" I felt cold, like something invisible had brushed past me. "I wasn't," I said. "I haven't been going anywhere." He looked at me again, too long, too calmly, and said, "I didn't say I saw you. I said I heard you." After that, Langley didn't ask outright anymore. No more, "What time did you get in?" Instead, he started dropping hints, small comments that felt like breadcrumbs leading somewhere I didn't want to go. "Funny how the walls have ears," he said one morning, as if sharing a joke only I wasn't in on. Or, "Sounds travel strange in this building, don't they?" I tried to ignore him. I focused on work, on my quiet evenings. But the questions, unspoken now, pressed on my mind. Footsteps, sounds, noises no one else seemed to notice. One night, I heard it myself. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up suddenly, heart pounding. At first, I thought it was just the usual creaks of the old apartment building settling. But then, a slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap came from the hallway just outside my door. Not a knock. More like someone tapping a cane or dragging something. I sat frozen in bed, eyes wide, staring at the door. My phone was on the nightstand, screen glowing softly. I didn't dare move. The tapping stopped. Minutes passed. Silence. Then, almost imperceptible, soft footsteps, fading slowly down the hall. I wanted to call out, but my voice was gone. The next morning, I found Langley waiting outside his door again. "Tough night?" I asked, forcing calm. He just smiled, tired. "You hear it too, then?" "Hear what?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "The footsteps. They don't belong to anyone here." I blinked. He shook his head slowly. "You're not crazy. Not completely." That's when I realized, whatever was happening, it wasn't about me going out. It was about something, or someone, moving in the halls late at night. Something Langley had been hearing for a while. And now, it was making me part of it. That night, I couldn't stay in my apartment. I needed to hear what Langley was talking about. Around midnight, I crept to my door and opened it just a crack. The hallway was empty, silent except for the faint hum of the building's old pipes. I stood there, heart racing, ears straining. Then tap, tap, tap. Slow, measured footsteps echoing down the hall. But no one was there. I stepped out cautiously, the floorboards creaking underfoot. The steps stopped. A cold breeze swept past me, chilling my skin despite the summer heat. A whisper, barely audible, brushed against my ear. "You came back late again." I spun around. Nothing. Suddenly, the lights flickered, then went out. Darkness swallowed the hallway. In the pitch black, I felt it. Presence, watching, waiting. I stumbled back inside, slammed my door, and locked it. My breath was ragged, chest tight. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You don't live alone." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I told Langley everything. He nodded slowly. Some neighbors aren't who they seem, and some buildings, they remember. I never saw Langley again after that day. I moved out a week later. But sometimes, when I'm alone in a quiet room, I swear I still hear footsteps. Slow, deliberate, tapping somewhere just beyond the walls. And I wonder, who really lives here?